It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Peter Lawrence, joined today by Chad Juttner, one of the regular podcasters, and a special guest today, Paul Weedell. Say hello, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Hey, hello.
Hey, today we're going to be talking about Consulting 101, sort of in 2024 and what that looks like, and how SDG does it differently.
Or better.
Chad, you want to, or better, but differently. We don't want to toot our own horn, right?
I'll toot away. I mean, why not, right? We're actually pretty good at this. And so this one was actually kind of fun because between the three of us, I think the three of us have over 75 years of experience doing kind of what we do, or at the very least doing what we do in fields related to this, right?
Right.
I'm more than 25 years in. Peter, you're more than 25 years in.
Yeah.
Right. And Paul Weedell is actually the baby here.
Yeah. It's been a long time since somebody's been able to say that.
Yeah. So tell us about your experience, Junior.
Yeah, I've got more like 20. I'm working on year 24 of my experience, so not quite as seasoned as you gentlemen.
Yeah. I'm sure things have changed completely in the last extra 3 years that we've had on you or something like that.
Well, it is kind of strange because the 3 years that he's missing out on, huge for what we do, right? Like that was the boom and bust all happened within those 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you missed a hell of a ride there for a few years, but
Y2K and all sorts of fun.
Yeah.
I actually signed my first non-compete, non-disclosure agreement. It was in 2000, I don't remember the exact day, but if you look on the stock market, it's the day that everything crashed, including the company that extended me the offer. Their stock price went from like $70 to $20 that day.
Ooh.
But they at least they did the nice thing and honored their offer.
Nice. And so we got you with us today, and you've been consulting with SDG for quite some time.
I'm working on year 14.
I like to count years of experience in Christmases. So you've been with us for, was it 15 Christmases because you got hired in the fall?
No, it's 14.
The 14 Christmases, 2010-ish. You started at SDG, and at the time we were talking about this yesterday. You're actually early on in your career, you were an early adopter of the remote lifestyle, right?
Had the option?
Sort of. I had my first two clients gave me the option to work from home. The first one was in St. Cloud, and they really encouraged it. They were very forward looking with how they set up their work. Everything was actually virtual. So we'd go in with a laptop, but we would connect to virtual images. There was very little that you would actually do on your hardware. So the theory was, we could do this from anywhere. There was one thing like practical for doing the work, which was over a remote connection. It just wasn't the same. The other thing was I work with people, and if they're not there, if they're at the office and I'm not, kind of puts me at a disadvantage to doing my job. So much of this job and of consulting is relationships. At the end of the day, really, what you do means very little unless your clients appreciate it or even know about it. And right? I mean, you can work your tail off and try and produce what you think is the best thing in the world, but if nobody notices, what value is it really?
Right. Very much.
So if you're on site, you can talk to the people, you can form those relationships, you can make sure that you're doing what they want. Just a tremendous advantage.
That's true. Kind of in the early days of pioneering remote work was kind of the outlier, right? And so if you were working remote, even up until before the pandemic, if you were working remote on a team that was mostly not working remote, you were the outsider. You'd be sitting on a poor phone connection, surrounded, in a conference room with 20 people talking on this speakerphone, trying to get a word in edgewise or even hear the conversation that was going on. That has changed dramatically lately, but back in the day, if you wanted to make a personal relationship, you really wanted to be in the office. And I salute, your understanding and smarts and going out to the office, even though the commute was probably a little bit more dramatic than most of our commutes.
It was. I drove a pretty fast car back then, and we got paid by the mile. So as long as you drove fast enough, it was a decent rate.
There you go.
Well, now I'm kind of curious. What kind of car was it, Paul?
The WRX.
Perfect for rally racing or
And
getting to St. Cloud in under 90 minutes. What happened, man? Why'd you change it? Because now you just got a regular old Subaru.
Yeah, just got older.
This is going to turn into an automotive podcast.
Yeah.
This is not going to turn into an automotive podcast. Chad,
hey, can I ask you?
You've been working. Yeah, go ahead.
Really quick, for a Subaru owner. Now, I've always wondered, when you buy a Subaru, does it come with that coexist bumper sticker, or is that something you have to buy extra? It's an option. Okay. All right.
Hi, Emily.
I haven't seen one of that.
Chad, you've been getting back into the office a little bit more than some of the rest of us.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going kind of sort of back into the office, are you going back there with your entire team, or are you sort of one of the outliers being in the office?
No, I mean, if anything, what I've seen is that, we try to get in on Wednesdays. So we've got rituals, right? And we do a lot of our agile rituals. Everybody's sitting in the room doing planning, doing everything else, lighting the candles. All of that stuff that happens every other Wednesday, and it happens better if we're all in the room together.
Right.
So that's why we picked Wednesday. It's a nice middle of the week. And what I was surprised by is the number of people that actually enjoy being in person again, at least once a week. Right. So we do. I'm getting into like a 3-day-a-week cadence. So one day at my customer, I like to go to our SDG office 1 day a week. And then I'm going to do a third day at various coffee shops around the cities.
Sure.
I recommend Spy House in Northeast Minneapolis. But especially early on, it was almost a novelty to be in person again.
Right.
We're in the office and, at first you just see, our team is early once a week. And then it just built and built and built. And now we're walking into a completely full office every Wednesday.
Really?
And it's pretty neat. I mean, I've traveled to other office locations for work, and I've been in full offices, more in the South and up north here early on. And it was, I mean, I can't deny the vibe is a lot different.
Yeah.
Than if you're just, nothing wrong with working from home, but being in the office, being around people absolutely changes a few things for me. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Paul, you were talking about going into the office and getting those relationships going. From a consulting standpoint, what do you like about that as a consultant versus, sort of an employee who might have a little bit different take on the office experience?
So as an employee, if you're a full-timer there's an expectation that your job is safe. For us, we can get cut, and it's not necessarily because of anything we do. There are just forces at play. You've got budgets, you've got changes in direction. Any number of things can end your time at a client. To protect ourselves, one of the things we can do, go to the office. I wish the client I'm working for mostly right now is they ended their lease in Minnesota where we work. So I don't have the option to go in the office. So I do have to improvise quite a bit. But you have to find ways to make sure that you're forming those relationships with the people you work for and the people you work with. Some of the stuff you can do. One of the things I do is I join a meeting. I try and join meetings a minute early. Mm-hmm. And the whole purpose of that is to get some chit chat going. Maybe have some time to talk to whoever else is joining early before, you hit that quorum. And, you just kind of get to know them. And you kind of form a human relationship with them.
Nice.
And that's a nice way of them not just thinking of you as a consultant, but as somebody that talked to a real person.
Hey, Paul, really quick, can I tease you? I've never known you to have any kind of conversation that only takes a minute. But it is a good, so I've done the same thing. 5 minutes early is on time, right? Because we do that. That's a good tip. I like that a lot.
So what's the longest you've sat sort of in a meeting space electronically by yourself?
Oh boy, probably hours, but that's
Okay. What's the longest you've sat waiting for a meeting to start?
yeah.
Unexpected answers
there,
for Paul.
there are some. Well, no, there are extraordinary circumstances.
Right.
That's not typical at all. Generally, I will target 1 minute. If I see somebody else joins early,
So a lot of the software is helping out with that. They'll announce an early joiner or something like that. And you can choose to jump in if you're feeling communicative, or you don't want to talk, or not if you don't, right?
yeah,
Or if you're in the middle of something.
and it doesn't really cost me anything to jump in. I can still work while we're talking.
Right.
Maybe my work won't have the full focus, but I feel it's a good trade-off to have that human element in there.
Absolutely.
Have you ever forgotten to leave a meeting after it's done? And is that when you like? I've done that. Like everybody leaves, and I still have it on, and then you look at the meeting recording later on, and it's like 7 hours, and 6.5 of those are just Chad.
If I've done it, I'm not aware that I did it.
That's nice.
Hyper
So
aware because
you can
somebody-
watch Chad work for 7 hours. That's nice.
Good show.
Do the folks that are there early tend to be the same folks, or does it switch up a little bit?
Generally, I think people who join meetings early, just do it because it's their nature to try and be early. Or, folks who join after the meeting starts tend to be the same people.
That's true. But so you're building those relationships with the early arrivers. How do you catch relationships with the folks showing up a little bit later every time? Is that something you can do still?
Yeah, you try and take what you can get. Somebody mentioned something. Let's say there's a project manager who I'm working with. She's in Michigan. She let it slip a few weeks ago that she's a big University of Michigan fan. So of course, got to bring up, are you feeling about the Wolverines? Or,
Yep.
give her a little time in the sun. Just, talk about her team. If somebody shares something about themselves, kind of keep that on your radar. That way, you got something you can connect with.
Sure. That makes sense. So Chad, if somebody's talking about, I don't know, Grain Belt, the Vikings, the Twins, something like that, does that kind of hit home for you then? Or what do you do to make those connections? Prince. It's all about Prince.
A little, it's actually, sometimes I feel like a caricature now, right? Because 3 things that people associate with me consistently. It's half intentional, right? Like folks in other states know about what I drink here. They know where I drink. They know when I drink. They know everything, like a little too much about my day-to-day habits. But it is a fantastic way for people to make some sort of connection. And it's, semi-intentional, right? Like, yes, I do love Grain Belt. I love watching the Twins. It's not a secret. Maybe I play it up a little bit because it's pretty sticky for people in their head, they know. And it's always something to start at. It's always something where if I'm in a meeting with some dude that knows me and a bunch of people that don't, this happens all the time where a dude just brings up, oh, there he is, Mr. blah, 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 right? Having those, like I said, I call it I feel sometimes like I'm a caricature of a Minnesotan a little bit.
But it's also an automatic icebreaker, right? So you've got that built in so many times, and with different people joining different meetings and things like that, it's almost a great idea to have like a built-in icebreaker.
It is, and it's really cool. And then it's even better when, like, hey, maybe instead of just wearing hoodies and a baseball hat, I wear a tie one day.
Yeah,
holy crap,
that'll
that
throw
just
people.
blows people's minds. Yeah,
Yeah, that will freak people out.
If you wear a tie and have a Sprite in a 4:30 meeting, when you're known for hoodies, baseball caps, and Grain Belt, man, you just you're going to bake a few biscuits. That's for sure. So there's things to talk about on both ends of that.
Right. Paul, how about you? Are you things that I know about you are ice fishing? Your dog plays an important role in meetings sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
You enjoy a whiskey or two now and then.
There's whiskey
now and
in every nook and cranny of Paul's. I've been to Paul's house, and you don't go into a room and not see a little bit of, there you go.
Look at that.
You sit on Paul's couch and look into his TV. So there's some whiskey. I'm not saying Paul's got a problem. I'm just saying Paul is well prepared.
So
And
Paul,
probably never chilly.
well, I was going to say, is that part of your sort of caricature that you bring forth to clients, or is that something you bring forth to SDG folks, and that's why we're familiar?
It's more of an SDG thing.
Okay.
Unless a client talks whiskey, I'm not bringing it up.
Right. Right.
That's just my choice. I'm not from Minnesota, so some of the sports teams that I like, some fans in Minnesota may profess before their game that they hate the team I root for.
Sure.
Very hurtful.
That's I can understand that.
Hey, Paul, where are you from? Where were you made?
That's the question. Outside of Chicago.
Not White Sox. You're not a White Sox fan, are you?
No, and I was friends with I was friends with Comiskey's granddaughters. They had beautiful tickets and they're wonderful people.
Okay.
I'm a North Sider,
Cubs fan.
or at least my allegiances go towards the Cubs.
All right, that's not so bad. I mean, at least it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
So Paul, we've sort of broken the fourth wall or whatever, but so are there things that you bring out in those early conversations to sort of bring yourself out as a we call it a character, but sort of these are the things that I want to be known for at this client.
Yeah. So I talk about the weather all the time.
Weather.
We're in Minnesota, and we have a big portion of the year where it's much colder here than it is in many of the other places in the world where we work with people.
Yeah.
Work with people in Texas, in Florida, over in India. They always love to hear how cold it is, especially if you convert it to Celsius for the folks over in India. They're not as familiar with the Fahrenheit, but if you tell them it's 2 degrees, they'll say, "Oh, I can't imagine what that would be like."
Right. They've never experienced 2 degrees before in their lives, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing that I think it's a nice, safe topic that you can talk about. Nobody's going to get mad about it. If you talk about, say, sports, people, not any of us, are really passionate about things, and they'll, let's say, my team and Chad's team into a match, and it ended with a controversial call. Let's say it went in the team I like's favor.
Yeah.
It always does. Like, it's not controversial, right? Any call that is controversial will go against the Minnesota sports team. It's gross.
Yeah, like that fair catch call that changed the outcome of the game. That totally was in my team's favor. Wait a second.
Yeah.
But people can get really passionate about it, and they can decide they don't like somebody because of the teams they follow.
Sure.
There are people who will go that far, especially if that fan is really, really vocal about their allegiance.
Passionate.
I've never seen it taken that far. I don't deny that maybe it could be a thing. I guess I haven't seen that. Brunkamp was out.
Do you ever pretend to follow a team, or do you ever follow a client's team to have a conversation? I mean, when you mentioned Michigan, are there other times where you just like somebody mentions an allegiance or a team following, and you just kind of like, I'll keep track. I'll keep track of the scores. I mean, to me, I'm sure you both are aware of this, I'm not the sports fanatic. I don't have a lot of gear besides SDG gear. I have a lot of that, but I don't have a Vikings hat. I do have some Twins hats, but only because they were giving them away free, and who's going to turn around a free hat, right? So, but I've followed sports teams just to have something to conversate with someone about, and have that point of connection that will open up other areas of connection.
Yeah, for me, I it's not just limited to sports, but whatever people say they're interested in, just one of those things that I just kind of keep an eye out. If something happens that they're interested in, I might ask them, "Hey, what'd you think of, whatever
of that crazy call at the end of that game that one time?" or something. Chad, you've mentioned that you keep track of details about folks on occasion, just some things to have sort of a connection with.
Yeah, I mean, it's so people I work with mostly so I'm on a team of, I don't know, 10 people or whatever. If I hear something that somebody's into something, so one of the folks on my team, huge K-pop fan, specifically, oh shoot, what the heck is the
BTS?
That's it, yes. So I set up a Google alert for BTS, and it was cute the first couple of times because I would get this alert in my thing, and I'd be like, "Oh, J-Hope is blah blah blah," right?
Yeah.
This is a person, and I would just say like, "Hey, did you see that J-Hope is And it just blows minds. Like, what? One, who that is, and then two, what the news is. So yeah, I've done that quite a bit. Well, if it's something strange and I'm not going to get a ton of alerts, and it turns out I had to turn off the K-pop one because my goodness, those kids, they're everywhere. They're very prolific.
Passionate though?
Yeah, they have a passionate fan base, I guess you could say that. But I've done that before, like to keep track of things going on in interests that the people I work with have. Yeah, not necessarily with clients. That feels a little
too personal.
creepy, but with coworkers, for some reason it feels different, right? Like if I'm making K-pop jokes, I'm I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm an aggressive suburban dad, so like it's fun. That's one of the things I do is set up Google alerts, get little notifications for things that folks are interested in. Like I said earlier, like everybody knows. So I get teased about Twins games all the time. The Twins get blown
Hard
out.
not to.
I hear about it. Like I get text messages about it the night of, right? Which is neat. It's fun. And I haven't had Paul's experience where people get angry about sports. It's not a fun.
Well, it's probably, following the Minnesota teams, you don't dominate a whole lot of those clashes necessarily. So
hey, listen, Peter, calm down. We do okay.
I was born and raised in Minnesota, so I understand. Moving on.
Now boy, I'm getting pretty. Yeah.
So let's we've talked about sort of things to make those connections and things to get together with folks in kind of the consulting 101 frame of mind. What about some things that SDG does differently that help you out? Is there anything that comes to mind, Paul?
Yeah. So good thing about being at SDG is knowing that if I am in a situation where I need help for any number of reasons, and it could be technical, I may be lacking some expertise on a problem that we're dealing with. We may just want an opinion about some ideas that we're trying to progress. We're working towards a decision. Let's say we don't really know the ramifications of going one way or the other.
Right.
There's a really good chance one of the other consultants may have some experience with that, and I can talk to them. I feel very comfortable reaching out, finding out who's got experience and talking to them. And it's not always technical either. There can be some situations at a client that are more of a people situation.
Right.
And I know I can bounce some ideas of seeing this. I'm not sure what it means. What do you think? Got any ideas on how we can work with this? I mean, those types of conversations, I feel very comfortable having at SDG and using the strength of our collective experience to do a better job.
Yeah, that's very true. Chad, were you going to say something?
No, I just think, forget who it was, but we were talking to somebody recently. Peter, you might have even been there. There's other consultancies, and I think one of them had a tagline that said, "We're not going to buy you coffee and donuts," right? Right. They're going to place you and pay you. And that's cool for some people. That's not what we do though, right? Like we just yesterday, what do we have? We had a learning community led by some really, really smart people, really, really smart, attractive people. We drew over 40 people for that thing.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing we do regularly, right?
For sure.
Not only did we do that, but those same smart, attractive people, they're starting workshops. Maybe it's coffee shops around the Twin Cities, maybe one in Northeast, right? Every week we've got committees dedicated to our employee experience. We've got, people working hard to make sure that every consultant feels valued and has some sort of an experience tailored to their persona, their needs, right?
Right.
It's different than other places where, hey, we're just trying to find work for people. We're trying to place people. That's it. That's where it stops.
Yeah.
Our practice leads are actively attending conferences, keeping themselves up to speed. They're not just empty heads and seats, right? Like they're actually trying to keep abreast of the kind of things that we're going to have to learn sooner rather than later. And I was surprised by walking into our friend Jeff Urban's office and hearing him speak about AI in very technical terms, right? So our buddy Jeff, his whole job, well, a big part of his job is maintaining and sustaining our communities within the organization. It's a job that I would imagine if a guy wanted to, he could easily just post, right?
Sure.
And that's not what our buddy does, though. I mean,
No.
He's at conferences, he's throwing conferences, he's all over the place.
Right.
Learning he's almost like the tip of the spear for us. That's really cool. That's not a thing that I've seen. I've worked for other consultancies. It doesn't exist there.
No.
So the combination of dedicating resources to the employee experience, dedicating resources to learning communities, having people within the organization like actively interested in building community and learning communities and everything else, that's special to us. We don't see that anywhere else. And then what Paul said too, if I have a question about almost anything, it is easy to get answers. Hunt that out to Slack channel or something and say, has anybody seen this before? And get a lot of support there too.
Yeah, absolutely. The Slack community at SDG is strong. That's for sure. It's amazingly strong most of the time. It's almost never will you throw a question out there and get nothing. You might not get the answer or 400 versions of the answer as well, depending on the question and depending on what you're looking for. But, everybody wants to help the other consultants here at SDG, which is a super amazing environment to be in. And just to have 40 folks show up to a learning community last night, it's not unusual. It's not crazy, right? It is crazy, but it's crazy in that it happens to all the different learning communities and stuff that we have going on. Everybody is passionate about consulting and also passionate about technology. They're really, really, everybody focuses on that. We're longtime learners, and it's just an amazing thing to be part of. For me, I think it's 16 Christmases for me now. It might be 7. Well, I'll have to count them up. The calendar math is really hard, but just having those folks around this entire time, and also, Chad, you haven't been as fortunate as Paul and myself to watch it really grow and flourish. When I started, we were at and we're at 230 folks now, give or take. So it's been an amazing trip. So we've talked. I mean, each of us have talked about many things. Is there any sort of thing that stands out as, the house of cards would fall apart without it? Consultant managers, anything like that? Those folks do a lot. I've been trying to get one on here into the podcast for quite a while, but have yet to.
They're too smart.
They're too busy, as it turns out. They're very busy folks. Chad, what do you think? You look like you're thinking about another cup of coffee.
I'm actually had what's called a blackout, which is coffee with espresso in it. I've had something called Sage Against the Machine. A huge fan of pun-based drinks. I've had an additional cup of white roast, and I'm contemplating another blackout. No, I probably should.
No, I wouldn't recommend it based on other companies' experiences with lemonade and things like that.
No, I think. So, what was the question, Peter? What do we take away and have the train fall off the rails? I think a lot of the events, right? Like if we stop doing events, that would be a key indicator that hey, we got the opportunity for everybody, like literally everybody in the company to come together is huge. And if that went away, that would be a huge bump.
Right.
So
what kind of events does SDG do?
Paul, I'm glad you asked. We have our learning community events. We traditionally do holiday parties, company meetings. We have an award for, certain consultants that go way above and beyond. We throw an event for them. That's really nice. When those events are happening regularly, it's a lot of fun. It's magical. So every once in a while, for whatever reason, we might not have one, but, and the Saints game. Every year we go to a Saints game. And who doesn't love baseball? I don't know a single person that doesn't absolutely adore the game of baseball. All of those events are like a core part of our culture, and they're super important. Consultant managers, it's the amount of support that you get from your consultant managers it's wonderful, right? It's another I haven't seen at other consultancies. I've had roles like practice leads, right? Or
right.
I've had that role, but I haven't had somebody in between helping me throughout the day with various things. And the ratio of that role to a consultant, like we don't say, oh, you have a consultant and she has 60 consultants reporting to me. No, it's like a good school rep, right? There might be 15 to 20 people. Right? That's a nice manageable number of folks. So that's actually a really cool thing that we do, and it's an important role. Right? So
you mentioned you mentioned consultant managers, and Paul, tying back to one of the things that you were talking about, sort of some of the people skills or the people management that you work at enough companies, you're going to run into folks that don't necessarily that you've not run into before, and you're not sure how to manage that experience with them, right? And they may, I've certainly had my share where it's you felt like they were your enemy from the moment you walked in the door, and then at the end of the gig, you're high-fiving and celebrating, and part of that is the consultant managers helped guide you along the way with some of the interpersonal things, and to that point, Paul, you have a learning community based around that, right?
No, I am no longer.
You started up a learning community?
But I started and led for a year a community on consulting. And the scope of that community was really around developing consulting skills, talking about situations that we encounter at a client, and more or less just a support group to kind of talk about. I mean, we see some really crazy stuff when we're out there at a client. I mean, there are a lot of things. I'll tell you, I was at one. Your golf partner Cully may have been there too. And we actually kind of believed that we were on a reality TV show because that was the only explanation we could come up with for all the crazy decisions and things that happen, because it just, to us, it made no logical sense.
Sure. That's a fun one.
My time there, a lot of calls to my consultant manager.
So they were helping you navigate some pretty rough waters and just things that you don't necessarily see, but as a consultant, you're going to see more of that than you would necessarily as an employee, right?
Oh yeah, we live in a weird world where we're not really not employees. We're not human garbage either. We're somewhere in between. So a lot of times people, go ahead.
Is that your spectrum, Paul? Really? Employee and human garbage?
That is a spectrum.
You're so myopic.
Sometimes people think so little of us that they don't really even acknowledge we're in the room or in the meeting, and they let their guard down big time. They'll say all sorts of stuff,
and they may not recognize that as consultants we bring a lot of experience and a lot of things to help out a situation, whereas to kind of keep it positive, sort of they might be having an experience that they're not looking forward to, right?
Oh yeah. And I guess to bring this to a more positive place. I was at a client once where the culture was don't really fraternize with the consultants.
Right.
Employees and consultants should be separate. You talk to the employees when you have something you have to say, but otherwise, just do your work and let them do their thing. But once you hit like a crisis and you're there to help them, and they see that you have their back, that culture conflicts with what they want to do. They become more friendly. They become more willing to just talk to you as a person. But it really just comes down to them seeing that you're there to help them and you're taking their concerns very seriously.
Right. You're not just there to collect a paycheck. You're not there to not get donuts and coffee, right? You're there for the whole experience, to be as close to an employee as you can be. You care about the project passionately. Chad, I know you care about your project passionately, and Paul, I've heard you talk passionately about your projects as well. That you really care about what's happening to this, even though at the end of the day you're going to walk away, and because that's part of consulting. But while you're there, you are there. You are committed. You are everything. Always thinking about that client, right?
Yeah, and I don't think, even after I walk away from this one, there's connections that you're going to make everywhere you go that are going to last way longer than your engagement does. So, and that's one of the magical things about what we do is that we get to experience a lot of different environments. Other people get to experience a lot of different environments. I get to experience the one because I am university adored.
That's right.
The opportunity to be exposed to so many different clients, so many different situations, and so many different cultures is huge for us. And it's something that I wish other people could experience, right? Like SPG internally, we have our own culture, right?
Yep.
And we kind of try to build that and nourish that and do what we can with it. But as consultants, we have a leg in both worlds, right? The SDG culture and then the culture of the company that you're currently in,
right? And
to a certain degree, the situation that you're currently in, right? If it's a high pressure situation, if it's a low pressure, like it would be one thing if I was at a client and hey, the project is relatively straightforward. The requirements are pretty much
cut and dry.
The architectural patterns that you're working with, patterns that you've worked with before, there's that kind of thing. And that's a nice, like easy, not easy still, but like there's a consistent vibe there, right?
Right.
Or you could be in a situation where you're dealing with ambiguous environments, various experience levels, and whatever the timeline constraints are, right? That you have one leg in that culture all the time, and it affects your relationship to SDG to a massive degree. Because if I'm at a client and I can just kind of coast, right? Not necessarily coast, but I can put in 8 hours and whatever, and everything's great. I'm not going to talk to my CM as much because there's nothing to talk about. Things are going good. Things are going good.
Right.
SDG is really special though when it's not that case. Like when you are under an insane amount of pressure, all of these other situations happen. All of a sudden, everybody springs to life and you get a ton of support. So where was I going with it? Two different cultures, right? You have your whatever the situation you're placed in, and then you have the culture that we have as our own company. And I wish, more folks would be exposed to the variety of situations and cultures and people that we have to deal with day to day. I think a lot of hear about those situations secondhand, right? And it might not always come across as intense as it really, really is sometimes.
Yep.
But we're still supportive, and it's great. It's wonderful. Go ahead, Paul. You start talking about that before.
Oh, shoot. What should I talk about? I know we're getting pretty close to time. So,
yep.
Hey, Paul, why don't you just give us a couple of closing thoughts? Like, what do we call it, Peter? Parting thoughts.
Parting thoughts. Your final thoughts.
Parting thoughts. Yeah. So I think consulting comes down to caring about what you're doing, caring about the people you're working with and working for, and doing your best. That's those three things. If you're doing those three things, everything else kind of just follows. It's just like, you care about where you are and the people, the professionalism goes up, the quality of your work goes up, all that stuff. I'd just say do those three things, you're good. So it's caring about what you're doing, caring about the people, doing your best.
How about you, Chad? Parting thoughts?
That's the most important thing. We
call that caring, but yeah.
Paul said it a little bit more eloquently than I did, but as long as you actually, like he said, if you're interested in stagnating, like if you're interested in just coasting, probably not the gig for you, right? But if you desperately want to consistently improve, this is kind of what we're doing.
I'll echo both of those. We've read a book a long time ago about humility, respect, and trust, and those three things tied together make a pretty good consultant. You have to respect your client. You have to be a little bit humble, but still have to know your stuff and be able to present it. You have to trust that they're going to care about the things and take you take your opinions and take your consulting as they can. So I think that's great. At the end of the day, we say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Go on, folks.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.